everyone. Good evening. So we are group number 8. It will be me, Joanne, and Marty reporting. So we are supposed to discuss the readings provided by Dr. Ramos about laboratory notebooks. Since it will be short and it will take us like 30 minutes, we thought of expanding it to data management. So here's the outline. I will be introducing you to research data management. We'll discuss you the concepts and what constitutes research data. Joanne will be discussing the different types and guidelines on laboratory notebook. Marty will discuss different data management systems. So here are the two quotes from the 461 issue of the Nature Journal about data sharing that encapsulates why managing research data is important. First one, research cannot flourish if data are not preserved and made accessible. All concerned must act accordingly. Next, data management should be woven into every course in science as one of the foundations of knowledge. So, from these two quotes, our discussion will be uh, observed by this quote. Research data management or RDM. Before I define what RDM is, let us define first what is data. The first question is to address what the term data actually refers to. The definition varies, and to some extent, what counts as data will depend on the field of the study. For many people, their initial association with the word data will be numerical information such as statistics, spreadsheets, or experimental results, or perhaps the contents of highly structured information sources such as relational databases. However, data is far from being limited to this. Other example includes, as you can see, textual sources. We can say literary or historical works that are being analyzed, or interview transcripts, audio files, videos, emails, books, papers, and etc. So the Digital Creation Center suggests that data is an interpretable representation of information in a formalized manner suitable for communication, interpretation, or processing. A very broad definition, such as any information you use in your research, works well for thinking about data management. It helps make sure you don't miss out something important. So, whatever your area of research is, you will be, you will be dealing with data in one form or another. Bear in mind that not all data is digital. Print resources, handwritten notes, tape recordings, and hard copies of images may also be important sources. In addition to the data you collect or generate and analyze as part of your research project, it is also worth thinking about the data you will create. This might include very structured collections of information such as what I said earlier, relational database, or it might be something much more informal, such as a file of your own notes, summaries you create for your own reference, or a list of items to be examined. Since the data is any information in your research, let us now call it research data. Unlike other types of information, research data are collected, observed, or created for the purpose of analysis to produce and validate original research results. Research data may be viewed as the lowest level of abstraction from which the information and knowledge are derived. Another way of looking at it is to view as the level at which measures was originally collected. Example, individual responses to a survey or census, hourly measures of temperature, wind speed and wind direction, number and price of shares traded in each stock, buy or sell transaction, or etc. However, the word means different things to different people in different contexts. Different disciplines have and use discipline specific language around the subject research data. Some people refer to everything digital as data. Otherwise, it refers other refers to both analog and digital materials as data. Research data can be defined as recorded factual material commonly retained by and accepted in the scientific community as necessary to validate research findings. Research data can also be regarded as situational in that the same digital information or materials may be data for some research questions but not others. Likewise, the same information may be research data for a person at one time point but not data at another time point, depending on whether that person uses that information or material for analysis. For example, a photographic image of an old municipal building in a historical archive is an archived image in an image bank. But when used by a researcher to study the history of a city, the photographic image becomes data for that researcher. Another example, CCTV footage may be archived or destroyed by a security firm. However, when used by a researcher to study human behavior or 21st century surveillance methods, the video footage becomes data for that researcher. Thus, research data are very much about when they are used as well as what they constitute and the purpose for which they are to be used. Data can also be created by researchers for one purpose and used by another set of researchers at a later date for a completely different research agenda. So there are two types of data. John McInnes, professor of sociology at the University of Edinburgh, will help me explain the main difference between primary data and secondary data. So, what he explains is secondary data are data collected by someone other than the user, while primary data are collected by the investigator conducting the research. Research data come in many varied physical file formats and content types. Research data formats can be text, numerical, multimedia, models, software, and can be discipline or instrument specific. Listed are the examples for every format. So for text, for numerical, for multimedia, for models, for software, binary and code files written in a variety of programming scripting languages such as the following: Java, C, Perl, Python, Ruby, PHP. And there will be some example for discipline specific and instrument specific. It may be important to manage the following research records, research data. Just, sorry. So, research data may comprise the following objects. So, those are the example for research data objects, so take note of that. So, the laboratory notebooks will be discussed by Joanne later. So, research records. It may be important to manage the following research records for both during and beyond the life of a project. So, after this, there will be an activity. So, this activity aims to distinguish between research data objects and research records. Joanne or Marty will call someone to answer. So, the question is it a research data object? First, nuclear magnetic resonance image. Yeah, you're right. It is an RDO. So, NMRI is a medical imaging technique used in radiology to visualize detailed internal structures such as the heart, brain, muscles. Next, technical appendix about the methods used in the project. Is it a data object? No, it's not. So, a technical appendix is an ancillary to the research data that was created as part of the research process. Third one, audio interview file. Yes, it is a research data object. An audio file is a file format for storing audio data on a computer system. In this case, a file containing a recording of a person or persons being interviewed as part of a qualitative study. Fourth one, thin layer chromatogram. Yes, it is an RDO. It is a research data object. So, TLC is the result of a widely employed laboratory technique to separate mixtures using a thin absorbent layer. So, the fifth one, an email correspondence about the object, not an RDO, not an object. Primarily, email refers to a means of exchanging information. Such information may be about the research process or about research data, but usually does not represent the actual research data object. So the last one, georeference satellite image. It's a data object. Georeference satellite image. This is a digitally created image of a part of the Earth created by a satellite whose location has been assigned in terms of a map projection or coordinate system. So, classification of research data. Research data can be generated for different purposes and through different processes. So, the first one is observational. Data captured in real time, usually irreplaceable. Examples, sensor data, survey data, sample data, or brain or neuro images. Next is experimental. Those are, those are data from lab equipment, often reproducible but they can be expensive. They are data from experimental results. Some example were gene sequences, chromatograms, and toroid magnetic field data. Third, third classification is simulation. Simulation data are generated from test models where model and metadata are more important than output data. Example given, climate models and economic models. The fourth one is derived or compiled data. Those are data resulting from the processing or combining raw data, often reproduced flexible but expensive. Some examples: text and data mining, compiled databases, aggregate census data, and 3D models. The last classification, it's a reference or canonical. It's a static or organic conglomeration or collection of smaller peer-reviewed datasets, most probably published and curated. Example: gene sequence databanks, chemical structures, spatial data portals, or crystallographic databases. Research data life cycle. A research data life cycle describes the stages through which research data is collected, recorded, processed, and results are published. The management of research data will involve different combinations of researchers and support staff and activities during different stages of your research. A life cycle approach is helpful for effective data management as it encourages planning ahead, including awareness of pre-existing data and how your data will complement this, thinking carefully about how data and metadata will be gathered and processed, and what type of consent you need to deposit your research data for reuse beyond your original project. The research data lifecycle is taken from the UK Data Archive. It shows you how the different processes and activities you'll go through. So first is creating data. This is when you'll design the research, write data management plans, negotiate consent agreements, find any existing data you want to reuse, collect or capture your data, and create any associated metadata. Processing data. When processing your data, you'll be entering, transcribing, checking, validating, and cleaning it. You may also need to anonymize your data. You should describe it and make sure it's properly managed and stored. Analyzing data. When you analyze your data, you'll be interpreting it and creating derived data and outputs. You'll probably also author publications and prepare the data for deposit and sharing. Preserving data. Repositories play a key role in preserving data. They will make sure it's properly stored and archived. They will migrate the formats and storage medium and create associated metadata and documentation to explain any changes made. Giving access to data. It may be that you share your data via a repository or handle access request yourself. Either way, you need to establish copyright, decide who can have access, and promote the data. Reusing the data. Data can be reused in follow-up studies, new research, research reviews, to evidence findings, or for teaching and learning. Try to keep an open mind about the different ways in which your data could be reused and make it as open as possible. So, syempre, kung ni-reuse mo yung data, you will be generating new data, then start on the cycle. So, everyone knew naman what cycle is, di ba? Let us now define RDM or research management. As discussed on the previous slide, it is part of the research process and aims to make it as efficient as possible and meet expectations and requirements of the university, research funders, and legislation. It also concerns the organization of data from its entry to the research cycle through to the dissemination and archiving of valuable results. In simple terms, research data management concerns how you create data and plan for its use, organize, structure, and name data, keep it and make it secure, provide access, store and back it up, find information, resources, and share with collaborators, and more broadly, publish and get cited. So that's it, guys, for RDM. Thank you. So next reporter will be Joanne and we'll discuss about laboratory notebooks.